Today we'll be looking at our first game that doesn't originate from Russia. YIIK, a postmodern RPG, is developed by YIIK Studios and published by What? The game takes you through a narrative so terribly made, most people probably don't finish the game. And I don't blame them. Throughout the entirety of the game, you'll notice a running theme: quirkiness. This game is absolutely overloaded with references, fourth wall breaks, quirky moments, perfectly executed lines. The list goes on. But the problem lies in the priorities that these little quirky references take over the actual gameplay and overall quality of the narrative. It's always fun to find a hidden Easter egg or reference in a game, so that's probably what YIIK Studios had in mind when they cranked up the quirky meter. Unfortunately, the result of this decision is a really boring and one-dimensional RPG with gameplay that makes you feel like you're trying to operate an industrial-sized microwave while having a stroke. Albeit terrible, this game's only lifeline is its gameplay. YIIK is so boring on its own that if it didn't have its gameplay, it would be literally unplayable. The game has 3 stages of gameplay: story, navigation, and combat. Story gameplay is the second worst form of YIIK's playstyle. You basically walk around an area doing whatever you're supposed to do in that scenario. If story gameplay is the second worst, then navigation is by far the worst part of the gameplay. Navigation is the transition between 2 areas in the game. You basically just turn into a Funko Pop and try to figure out where you're supposed to go. That isn't the bad part. The worst part of it all is the encounters. Instead of having a system where you step on a certain patch of grass or other trigger, YIIK sets a timer for your next encounter. It doesn't matter how far away you are or how fast you're going, every 3 to 10 seconds you'll be forced into some combat. That brings us to our next category: combat. YIIK actually received a major update halfway through my playthrough that greatly improved the combat aspect of the game. However, this isn't anywhere near a No Man's Sky style redemption arc. At its most basic level, the combat is just a bunch of quick-time events that either deal damage to the enemy or reduce the damage dealt to you. Since the update, a more strategic style was introduced in the form of matching strengths with weaknesses. There's also this time-energy thing that basically just slows everything down to make quick-time events easier. It's not an ideal system, but it's better than what you'd expect from a game like YIIK. You play as a man named Alex, who just graduated with a master's in liberal arts. The game starts off by establishing that it's set in the late 90s. Alex arrives home from college, and after he explores his house for a while, he eventually manages to wander off to some abandoned hotel where he finds a girl named either Sammy Pack or Sammy Park. Both names are used interchangeably. You find out that she doesn't know what elevators are, and she is subsequently detained by the Federal Bureau of Elevator Awareness. You steal her beloved pet cat and keep it in your hotbar next to the sentient panda that you found earlier. The panda only gets used like 3 times as a meat bridge, so I just glossed over that bit. After being freaked out about the lack of elevator awareness in his hometown, Alex returns home and decides that he needs to find Sammy Park. Some weird stuff happens and he eventually becomes friends with a high school student named Michael. Michael likes to pretend he has a soul because seeing humans fooled into believing his fake emotions amuses him. He's also an aspiring photographer. Together, Alex and Michael go back to the hotel where they spot some elevator experts and promptly leave, fearing unwanted social interaction. Then the two do stuff. They meet a girl named Vella, then another kid named Sammy. This is Rory, not Sammy, who takes the group on a wild sewer adventure which ends up being pretty pointless. The gang breaks up, then gets back together, then absorbs 2 new members. They spend days looking for a record only to find out that it said unreleased on the sleeve. And then the rest of the story is really long and boring.
the game ends with Alex killing some version of himself. I'm not really sure about what happens during the ending, but I do know that it is way too confusing and long for me to really care. All that being said, I think this game is garbage and you shouldn't waste your money on it. The reason this video took me so long to finish was that I could hardly bear playing the game. In my opinion, games shouldn't have to feel like a chore to play, and that's exactly how this game felt. If you really want to buy the game, at least wait till it's on sale. Toby Fox made a song for this game's OST, and it's not half bad. The menu has a references page which cites many inspirations for the game, including the English language itself. The tutorial is really weird. I've noticed many parallels between Y2K's story and the disappearance of Elisa Lam, mainly the disappearance of Sammy and the weird fascination this game has with elevators. It also seems that I'm not the only person to theorize about this, as I've seen search suggestions for Elisa Lam while gathering images from Google. But that's just a theory. Again.